Hello, everyone. I'm Brian Carrington, and you're listening to Call Talk for August 13th, 2013. Today's topic is exciting, and it is provide strategic organizational value by transitioning your center from a service to a sales culture. And if you're listening live, I'd like to invite you to be a part of the show and ask a question. It's real easy. Here's how you can do it. You can either email me at brian@benchmarkportal.com. That's spelled out BRIAN @benchmarkportal.com. Or if you're listening on the phone or just close to one, you can call in and talk online. To do that, you'd want to dial in at 347-857-3117. Grab a pen. I'm going to give it to you again. 347-857-3117. Make sure to press the number 1 on your phone to let me know that you will have a question, and I'll get you in. Also want to remind you that all of our shows are archived and available to listen to at any time of your choosing at benchmarkportal.com. So let's go ahead and kick the show off as I introduce the host of Call Talk, Bruce Belfiore.
Welcome back to Call Talk, everyone. Today's topic is a hot one in our industry, strategic value that you can find for your organization by transitioning your center from a service to a sales culture. And during today's session, we'll discuss how to develop a strategic roadmap, design strategies that will excite your organization for change and growth, and we'll discuss the importance of measuring results for success. I'll be anchoring today's show with my valued colleague, Dee Buell, who is also the content manager for Call Talk. How are you doing today, Dee?
Good, thank you, Bruce. This will be a great show.
Yes, it's great to have you with us. And we brought in an expert on the topic for everyone, who's Russell Rossi. He's the Corporate Vice President of Customer Experience and Strategic Planning for Ney York Life Tampa operations. Russell's responsibilities include all customer touchpoints and technology of the Customer Experience Program, which includes the internal quality teams, learning and development team, after-call survey, speech analytics, voice of the customer, and voice of the agent programs. Additional responsibilities that Russ covers includes oversight for all strategic planning and project management for key member services technologies and enhancements. So Russ really has a 360-degree view of these important issues. He also has over 25 years of management experiences in a wide range of industries with core competencies in strategic and tactical business planning, project management, quality and process engineering, revenue generation, customer service and satisfaction retention, and business growth development. Russ holds a BS degree in business and marketing. In addition, I should mention that Ney York Life has enjoyed an 11-year relationship with BenchmarkPortal and recently achieved their 10th consecutive distinction as a Center of Excellence awardee. So it's my pleasure to welcome Russ Rossi. How are you doing, Russ?
I'm doing fine, Bruce. How are you doing today?
Doing great. I almost had you there with a 600-degree view of things, which...
Yeah, I was curious to see how you were going to explain that one, because that's something new I had never heard before.
Well, 360 degrees, I think, is still pretty good.
Yeah, very good.
But, I was just trying to sort of almost double it for you. Anyway, well, really glad to have you here to discuss this exciting topic. And I don't know, maybe we could just start by explaining what you mean by providing strategic value to an organization.
Sure, I'd be happy to. For years in our contact center here, we primarily serviced our client base, which means when they would call in for a service inquiry or a question, we would, obviously politely and first call resolution, handle that service need. And then we ended our interaction. And we did that very well for many, many years. But over the past 4 years, we implemented a new process where we started to upsell customers, and primarily to ensure that our customers had the proper coverage for their needs. So simply put, we went from handling just their service needs to ensuring that their needs were fully being met, and if not, we made sure that we pointed them in the right direction for the appropriate coverage.
Yep. Okay. And so therefore, that in turn will bring in more business to the company. So you'll have strategic value realized in that it will actually add value to the company while also adding value to the customer and making them appreciate the fact that you have a greater sense of what their need is. Would that be a true statement?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's really mirroring the sales aspect, but at the end of the day, we're knowing that we're selling them something that they really need. And many times in our environment, our customer base is underinsured. And we believe the right type of customer experience approach is to make sure we're matching up their needs to what the policies or products that they've purchased. And if there's a gap, I think it's our job to help close that gap so they fully understand what they have and that they have enough coverage for their final needs.
Okay, and I think that brings together all of the real components that strategic means, in that you understand your market really well, what their needs are, your company's capabilities. How do you bring all of those capabilities to bear for the customer so that you can actually increase revenues and profits for your company? And when all those things come together, it's not just a tactical thing. It really is strategic, because it's going to end up in a stronger company and a stronger relationship with your customers, right?
Oh, absolutely. And, we started this process like I said, a handful of years ago, and it was just a pilot to test to see if this process would work and if we really could drive incremental revenue. And it's been amazing what we've been able to accomplish over the last 4 years. And we went from this being a pilot, stick our toe in the water to see if it works, to now it represents a pretty significant revenue stream for our organization that's driven right from the contact center. So it helps the contact center move from being a cost center to really being more of a profit line center. And I think that it really does provide that additional strategic value to the organization.
Okay, so for our listeners, this is really key stuff, because all of us are being asked to be in some way ambassadors and salespeople for our company so that we can find new revenue sources, particularly in these economic times. Well, let me ask you this, Russ. When you were earning your degree back in college, did you ever think you'd be delivering this type of topic at a show like this?
Oh, man, it was no way. I go back in my college days, and like many people, I changed my degree a few times as I was searching for what I wanted to do when I grew up, and finally settled on a marketing degree. My first position outside of college was actually working in a customer service department for a travel company, and part of my job was handling and talking to customers every day. The other part was trying to balance the company's checkbooks as well. And I can tell you, for 4 years in college, I could never balance my checkbook to save my life. But here I was, balancing thousands and thousands of transactions on a monthly basis, and it was eye-opening. But part of that experience was when I was dealing with customers every day, I really realized that I loved doing that part of the job, and that interaction was, I guess, key to my growth, and here's where I wanted to now move my career, which is definitely different from my college days. But I love that part of the business, and I really, even from those early days, even started to learn the importance of what sales means in a service environment.
Right. Yeah. No. I mean, that's good that you were doing that in between beer and pretzels and pizza.
No, I didn't say that.
Yeah.
Well, Russ, you mentioned that you were actually involved in the calls and talking to customers and all that. Most of the time in a call center, the front line on the phone actually know the product probably better than anybody. So how did you come to focus on understanding the importance of sales in a contact center in that environment?
Sure. Well, I think, I maybe touched on it a little bit earlier, but in our environment, obviously, we sell insurance, and the primary life insurance. And the primary reason for life insurance is you have some final needs that need to be met. And quite often, our customers may have an amount in mind that they think would be enough, but sometimes they don't realize that is it really truly will be enough when I do pass on, whether it be 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, and the way that expenses for everything always seem to increase year over year. Do I really have enough at that point in time in my life when it's required for my beneficiaries? And sometimes our members would like to be able to leave something behind for beneficiaries as well as for their final needs. And sometimes those needs can change over the years. They may buy a life insurance policy today, but next year they may have some different reasons as to why they would want that policy. And so we just try to recognize and try to engage with our members and ask them, just to kind of reaffirm what their needs are for their life insurance policy to make sure that what they have is accurate. And that's really the core fundamental difference. Even though we say that we moved from a service to a sales environment, we really like bringing it back home to it's really doing the right customer experience approach, because at the end of the day, they bought that policy for a certain reason, and our job is to make sure that it will adequately fulfill their needs. And like I said, sometimes people's needs change over the years.
Absolutely. Well, have you identified some best practices in transitioning a contact center from a service to a sales culture?
Yeah, we absolutely have. I think we did a lot of research before we, as I said, stuck our toe in the water on this, but obviously we learned some things along the way. But I think, it ultimately has to start with your selection or hiring of the right type of agent for this type of position. Obviously, certain customer service agents they feel they're in the mode of, I'm a customer service agent, I'm not a salesperson, which is why I keep going back to, this core fundamental belief that this is a customer experience attribute that is important for us. But we also recognize that, a salesperson is kind of wired a little bit differently, so we had to make sure that we were actually trying to get the right people to have the right wiring for this type of job. So selection and hiring was critical. We then had to bring in some outside training from a sales training, because we didn't have that core competency in the past. We were a service organization, so we brought in a sales training program that we developed into our training for this group. We also then needed to make sure that we had the ongoing coaching that was in place that would reinforce what we trained. So we had to make sure it was incorporated into our quality monitoring program. So our quality monitoring forms needed to be created around the sales concepts. We had to make sure that we had a quality team members that were fully engaged and understood the quality process, so they could in turn assist the operations team in coaching these employees on these new strategies. And I think the last core competency was ensure that we had some type of reporting on the back end, so we can analyze our overall performance from a very high level. How many sales were we actually generating, all the way down to agent level metrics, to ensure that the agents were following through on the behaviors so we can have a way to manage their performance as well. So I think those were probably the handful of core competencies and best practices for us.
Right.
The whole sort of agent empathy issue comes in. I mean, it's something that we've heard a lot about over time, the importance of having empathy for the situation of the caller, and, how a good service agent can, in fact, tie into the mindset and the sensibilities of the person who's calling, and have that empathy. And actually, if you can, make that sort of a seamless quality of the agent from the service component to the sales component, I think that's really one of the important things that can happen here. It has something to do with intuition. So, Russ, when you were talking about being able to pick the right kind of person, I think that somehow being able to select for that and coach for that can be very important. We've seen from studies done in the past that the service mindset and the sales mindset are quite different. But if you can take somebody with basically a service mindset and convince them that, in fact, it's in the interests of the caller to have additional opportunities and additional, product opportunities, if you will, brought to their attention, then they'll accept the fact that, yes, sales, in fact, is a good thing and it's not a bad thing, right? Have you found something similar in your experience?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And, I've definitely been able to obtain customer satisfaction data, and it's proven that when a customer buys a service or product from you, especially on a service-related inquiry, they become more satisfied and more loyal with that organization. And they actually then, when it comes to a point where they'll actually score you on satisfaction surveys, they feel more satisfied and loyal to the organization and will rate you higher. And I think if any of us went back and looked at any recent purchases, obviously, usually you're happy when you buy something because you had a need, you had a want, and you found a product or a service that fulfilled that, and usually you're in a happy place, assuming that your experience was a good one, of course. But usually you feel very satisfied, so it only makes sense when you assess satisfaction on that customer. Not only were they happy that you solved their initial reason, you showed them something better that they didn't know that they needed, or you gave them some good value and they thought it was worthy enough to actually pull their wallet out and make a purchase. And usually that always drives to more loyalty and satisfaction. So it absolutely is proven this is a positive. And these are some of the concepts that we try to drive back into our organization when talking to our employee base. So it's not always that we're just trying to sell. We get back to that core fundamental of it's the right thing to do for your customer.
Right. Okay.
That's what I hear you saying is you're really having to get it into their mind that actually sales is a service.
Absolutely, yeah, it's the right service to do.
That makes the difference. Right.
Absolutely, yeah, because if you realize, and if you never ask a customer that has, in our case, a life insurance policy, and say it's $10,000, but they really have an outlay of $20,000 for their beneficiaries to take care of whatever their final wishes were, and if we don't bring that up to them, then I think we're doing them a disservice. And I think our job is to make sure that if they bought a product from us, that it should be fulfilling what they need. So, again, we always drive that core message home.
Great.
Okay. No, perfect. Well, think about what you were mentioning, too, in terms of being able to measure all of these things and be able to coach to them. And all this needs technology. Could you talk to us a little bit about the impact of proper call center technology on providing all this strategic value?
Yeah, and this has been ever evolving for us. I mean, we had a strategy when we first started, and this has taken us 4 years, and we're still not where I think we would love to be, but we've made significant advancements during this time frame. And what we did at the onset of this program, not all of our customers are eligible once they have bought a policy with us to be eligible for additional type of coverage or different type of add-ons, depending on their unique situation. And we have a way in our technology to be able to recognize that if somebody is not eligible for an upgrade or an upsell, our system will trigger that. Therefore, the cases or when a customer is actually eligible for some type of an upsell opportunity, the agent's desktop will have a prompt that highlights for them and it advises the agent this person is eligible for a sales offer, which happens about half the time on our calls. So right there, we've taken some of the guesswork out of an agent trying to understand, and sometimes on the fly, is this person eligible or not? So the system prompt helps them to identify this one is now eligible for an opportunity. Then we have used our technology then to be able to decipher. This has been probably a couple years after we initially started our first pilot that we changed the desktop configuration. So instead of it where our agents had to search multiple screens to determine now what are some of the additional options that this customer could have, we basically implemented what we call a desktop 360, where it brings a lot of the customer history up on the front of their screen. So now they don't have to toggle to 2 or 3 different screens to try to find different pieces of information. We brought it all up to the front screen. And now at a quick glance, they can identify where the customer may have some opportunities and now be able to start that dialogue with the customer. So I think that those two are really key from a technology piece. And then I mentioned some reporting on the back end to make sure that we're looking at sales metrics that we have for our agents, and as well as from the organization. If we're going to provide an upsell opportunity, how do we track to make sure that upsell happen? And do we track that sale as a result of our sales process to make sure that we have accurate reporting and it can contribute it to our efforts? And that way, that's how you really measure whether this program drove this result or not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The technology component is so important, and I would encourage our listeners to think about really spending some time doing side-by-sides and sort of tracking what is actually happening on the screens of their agents, how calls are being routed, how screens are being used, how, if you have too many screens that have to be used, would it be a good idea to do an ROI analysis on how to consolidate some of these legacy systems into something that mashes them together? What is it that you'd like to have at your fingertips in terms of information for coaching purposes, being able to listen to calls, all that really takes technology. And if you can sort of say, what would be a best practice here, and how could I get that through good technology? That would be a very valuable thing for our listeners, I think, to do on a pretty regular basis. Yeah, and I'm sure, Russ, that's been part of how you've done it too, is to basically say, okay, what's being done, and how could we do it better?
Right, and like I said, we started this journey a little over 4 years ago, and we had some, enhancements on the technology, but it's, fast forward 4 years later, we're still adding new elements to the desktop to help in our sales process, and I think it'll be an ever-evolving process for us. But yeah, it's never a one-time shot, and you learn as you go along because every program is different. Every program either has unique strategies, or you may develop new strategies, and you may need your technology to help facilitate that as well. So yeah, it's ongoing, but I think that's exciting as well because that's you're into new uncharted territories, and I think that's kind of the exciting part of when you're developing new strategies.
Yeah, no, journey toward excellence just keeps on going and going, and it's one of the fun things about our industry is that technology does keep getting better and more enabling for purposes of management, et cetera. So, okay, great. Well, let me ask you, what is the latest research on introducing sales into the contact center show from your point of view?
Yeah, and I think I might have already talked a little bit about this before, but when customers actually purchase a product or service from you, they feel good about their purchase, or they wouldn't have made the purchase. It fit a need that they had, and it provide them another link into your organization where now they're more fully invested in your company because now they've made an additional purchase. It's like if you buy a car from Toyota and you buy a Camry, and then you just love the Camry, and now you'll go back to Toyota and you'll buy a different car from them, and now you become more of a Toyota family or a Ford family, and it's kind of that same concept with us as well. And like I said, we've seen it proven out in customer satisfaction data that when they buy a product or service from you, they're apt to be more loyal and rate you a much higher. So we make sure that we leverage that into our environment, and we're seeing the similar results here. And Bruce, over our 11-year relationship together, our customer experience results have not stayed stagnant. I think we've been able to demonstrate year over year continual improvement, and we attribute that part of this is because of the sales approach as well. So sales can be a good thing in a lot of ways.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I've seen that progress. It's been really great to watch and to, talk about and contribute to. And I know there's going to be a lot more in the future as well. So that's great. Well, these are great insights. And I noticed that Brian has some questions for you. So I'll turn it over to Brian.
Okay. Yeah, I sure do. This first one comes from Alex, and you've talked a lot already, Russ, about this is a little bit of a challenge, but it's definitely rewarding for many different reasons. So Alex's question is, what was the most challenging aspect in executing the shift in culture from the service to the sales?
Only one. We had a lot of challenges. Maybe I'll try to maybe touch on a couple of them because we definitely had more than just one. But I think the first one was, you have to effectively communicate with your staff the reasons for this strategy, and it can't just be, hey, guess what, we're selling today to these customers. It has to be, you have to share with them the vision, the entire strategy of why it's important, why we think it's the right thing to do, why we think it's the right customer experience approach. And more importantly, how our customers benefit if they have the right product that matches their needs. That's critical, and your frontline agents play a key role because they talk to customers all day long, and that was probably the most critical, is to get their buy-in. The second strategy, or second, I think, challenge for us was to have the frontline managers bought in on this concept too, because they're the ones that will influence the behaviors on their agents. And if you don't have the frontline managers fully buying in, understanding the concepts, and everybody marching to the same beat, you will have troubles and you will have definite challenges. And we recognize that was a key piece. And I think one more, I could probably name more than this, but probably one more would be just the technology front. If we had to execute all of this without any technology enhancements, I think the program would have been much more inconsistent in the way that our agents applied the strategy. I think our results would have been much lower than where they are today. The technology, even though it continually evolved over time, it really provided us that consistent mindset where we knew the opportunities would be recognized on a consistent basis, and we had the right type of desktop to facilitate the conversation, so we didn't elongate handle times to a significant level because it made it very easy for them to recognize opportunities, and then we had the reporting on the back end. So I think those are probably the largest challenges that we had to overcome. Does that make sense?
Okay. Absolutely. Can I just ask too, with regard to the supervisor level, because supervisor level is one of my favorites. I just think it's so important and oftentimes overlooked in many centers. I know not in yours, but can you just talk about your thoughts with regard to incentives for supervisor level people in this kind of a situation? Is it good idea, bad idea, what kind, et cetera, et cetera?
I guess it depends on how large the get you how your strategy is encompassed. And let me explain our setup. So what we do, our customer service agents recognize these sales opportunities, and what we call it, they do basically a referral. They recognize if there's a need for this upsell opportunity. They talk to the member, make sure that they're on the same page, and then they'll actually transfer that call to a sales team. And the sales agents are the one that go more into the needs assessment, and they'll do more of the selling. They're the ones that will actually potentially close the sale. So from the customer service agents that are conducting these referrals, we haven't like recognition, which is a little bit of an incentive program for those agents to produce those referrals. But again, that's pretty easy on their end, just to make that part of their ending of their interactions. The sales team that actually does the selling, they have a much more robust incentive program, as well as the managers that oversee that program are also incented on that sales component. But they're not incented solely on sales. It's a combination of their sales results, and it's a combination of their quality, because we want to make sure that they're selling it according to the right strategy and the right process, and they're not breaking all the rules to try to get a sale, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. So there's a balance of those two metrics, and that's where the incentives are placed in those groups that are focused in that area.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, Brian?
Yeah, I got another question. This one comes in from James, kind of a follow-up to Alex's question just a moment ago. We already talked about some of the challenges that you've had to face, Russ, but if you had to cite 2 to 3 actions that you felt were critical to make this transition happen, what would those be?
I think first of all would be the agent selection process. You have to have the right agents that are wired for this. We had to refine our recruiting skills, and we have a hiring assessment tool that we use. We had to use it in a different format to really try to ferret out the right type of agents that can make this transition and actually sell and welcome sometimes some pretty complex conversations, some heady conversations. And we had to look for people that had a little bit of a competitive spirit. I think that's healthy, and these guys are truly in a core sales environment. And I think the other one that is very critical is the right training. So you can select the right people, but you have to show them what is the right strategy, what is the right approach. And we brought in a training program that was right on point with, and it reinforced our core values for the strategy, and that was critical for us, and that was new for us in our organization. So I think those are probably the key ones I would say that are critical to move through, the right people and the right training.
Excellent. And Deb actually had a question related to the key elements in agent selection and training, but it sounds like you pretty much answered that well right there. So let me go to another one, and this comes in from Carrie. Carrie asked, how do you measure the success of this sales program? Is it just numbers?
Well, it isn't. And let me kind of explain what we looked for, because I'll take it from a low level all the way up to the highest level of our measurements. First, we decided that we needed to look at core sales metrics, not the regular call center metrics that we're all very accustomed to every day. We identified what those core sales metrics looked like, and when I talked earlier about our makeup, our customer service agents are measured on the amount of referrals that they provide to our sales team. So that's where the customer service agents are held accountable for a metric. The sales agents, then, we have a variety of metrics that they're held accountable to. When they handle that interaction, their job is to hopefully get a new kit or an application out the door to that member. So we measure how many kits are sent out, and these are all in relationship to the amount of sales opportunities. We measure how many of those kits are actually returned in the door, because it's not all about getting a kit out the door to somebody. It's all about a quality kit going out the door to where a customer should have this kit, and it makes sense for their needs. So we look and see how many of them, the return rate on those kits, and then we look at the paid rate. So how often, how those kits that are returned to us, how quickly we're paid. All of those are indicators of having that quality conversation and sending out kits that make sense. It's not about getting kits out the door. So that's why we had to look at a variety of metrics and how we look at our agents. When we look at it a little bit more higher level now, outside of the agent population, we look at it from our organization. And when we started this process 4 years ago for our inbound upsell program, we had this concept, we developed it, we piloted it, and we're very much a test and learn organization. So we're testing new ideas and strategies all the time. But in this first half a year when we tested this program, we actually were able to attribute about $250,000 of incremental revenue for this inbound service upsell program. So that was exciting that we had a concept and we were actually able to prove some results from that. So $250,000, not a significant amount, but it was a good amount for a test. Well, I fast forward now 4 years later, the same program is generating up to $7 million a year in incremental revenue. So it's now a pretty major pipeline. In addition to the inbound sales program, we also have a program where we retain customers. So customers that are wanting to cancel their membership, we have a special queue that handles those and retain customers. And again, we started that off a few years ago as a pilot, and today we're retaining up to $5 million a year through this core competency of retaining customers. And then lastly, over the last year and a half, we've included an outbound sales campaign where we helped with customers that maybe haven't made a first payment, or maybe we send kits to them and they haven't sent back a response to us. And that program, we tested it last year on a very small scale, and this year we're accounting over $4 million in incremental revenue from this outbound. So when you add up those three programs, the service upsell, our retention, and our outbound, we're looking at almost $17 million in annual revenue from those three programs that are driven solely by the contact center. So we went from, like I said, being a cost center to now we represent a significant line item on our overall marketing budget from a revenue standpoint. And I think that's exciting because now we have we have a bigger seat at the table in terms of strategy in our organization, and we have data to show that, hey, we're a major player in the contact center. So kind of beware because we're here. I think that's all those. That is facetious when I say that, but it's true. We have now really changed the dynamic of how our contact center is viewed, and now we have a seat at the large table, and we're part of making decisions now and crafting new strategies because we talk to 2 million customers on an annual basis, and there's a lot of value to be gained from that.
Mm-hmm. No, it's huge value. It's huge value, and you think about it, and really there has been so much progress made from going from being seen as a cost center to be part of a strategic value, revenue generating, loyalty generating center for the whole enterprise. And when you see that sort of thing happen, I think it's just so important. And in talking to you, what's come through is that it's not one thing that's done. It's basically, and after you've even done one thing, then you can find other ways to add to that strategic value and add to the revenue stream. Well, this has been great, Russ. We've come to the bottom of the hour. Would love to talk with you for another couple of hours, but unfortunately we can't. And really appreciate your being on the show with us. And Dee, thank you very much for being with us as well.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, Russ, again, thanks very much. I'd like to turn it over to Brian now because unfortunately we'll have to bring this to a close. But thanks very much for sharing all of those insights and all of that information with our audience.
Well, it's my pleasure, Brian, Bruce, and you guys have a great day.
Thank you. Okay. Brian, over to you.
All right. Yeah, thanks, everybody. Russ Rossi, Bruce Belfiore, and Dee Buell for the insightful discussion on the show today. Really interesting going from service to sales. What a difference that must have made in having, like you said, a different seat at the table, so to speak, for strategic planning. I bet that's got to feel very good. Well, I want to make sure that you join us next time, September 18th, 2013, when we'll talk about iMed's Voice of the Customer program. And, of course, also want to remind you not to forget to sign up for a free reality check multi-channel benchmark report at our website at BenchmarkPortal.com and see how your contact center compares to others in the industry. So for today, and all of us from Benchmark Portal, keep those headsets steady and your fingers ready. I'm Brian Carrington signing out. Have a great day.